TRW, back here at the Wargaming table. This is going to be somewhat of a gaming ramble blog. Obviously, I am back here at the gaming table with AIR1, Battle of Drew, 1562, but there's more to this. So let me first of all explain the videos. The videos that I publish on YouTube, one video is published a day, and that is done automatically. In other words, my videos are scheduled to be automatically published once a day. Right now I'm at about a 4-month lag. In other words, I'm 4 months ahead in a queue of videos. So when this video goes public, it was probably recorded 4 months or so earlier. So that does in fact explain why I can't and why I don't respond, even though at times I actually want to, but I can't really respond right away to comments left. So if someone says they want to see me continue a game or replay a game or something along those lines, I can't do it because responding would be months later. Actually, I do pay attention to games that people like to see, but that's really a very, very soft, indirect influence. So one video comes out a day, but that's automatic. That does not mean that I'm recording one video a day. So I explain that because I just got back from being away for 5 days. And the reason for mentioning that is that my mental link to AIR here has been completely broken. I mean, completely broken. I know I was deeply into it when I left. Now I come back. Such a great looking game. And of course I have very good memories playing it. I mean, earlier, from the beginning. But my link to what I was doing here is completely broken. Don't really remember what I was doing. Of course there was the big rules revelation. I know that. By the way, I'm still convinced about that. And it's so odd that the problem comes later. This isn't like a rule set is being progressively fine-tuned and refined. It's the reverse of that. Oh well. I will remember that, and I'll just adjust for that. It is such a great series of games, family of games. Although really, as a player, you should figure out that the modifiers are not all right. They do not all make sense. All right, but enough of that. So just being away, completely consumed by something for 5 days, which I'll mention in a second, but because of that, completely broke my mental link here to what I was doing. So I will probably, well, I have a number of other things that are waiting to be tried. So I will look at one of those. So for 5 days, I was away, taking part in a Department of the Army war game. Up front, that has nothing to do whatsoever with my enjoyment of wargaming here. It has nothing to do with that. These are 5 days that, I hate to say it, I really hate to commit it to record here, but it's 5 days I really would have rather been working elsewhere. Yeah. I have nothing to say about Department of the Army wargaming because I've been categorically unimpressed. That's just that. Probably the only positive, and so that's why I don't talk about that. I've taken part in, I think, about 6 of these events, 6 or so of these events over the last 3 years, under 3 different commands. Right, so I'm finding that all that experience isn't contributing anything to my own free time enjoyment of wargaming, except in one area, and that is that the one positive thing to come out of it is that it does usually re-energize me in my interest in modern and contemporary wargaming. So I do come away thinking about Millennium Wars, those games. I think come away thinking about the Assault series. I come away thinking about even something like Sands of War. I come away thinking about main battle area. So yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, so AIR is absolutely really a great example of wargaming. Great map graphics. Map graphics are done correctly. Counter art is, I think I mentioned this before, darn near perfect. I can no longer talk about die cutting. I guess I had a string of good luck early on with Victis games, because I know, I'll say either I had a string of good luck earlier, or Victis has changed counter supplier or die cutter at least, because early on I thought Victis had some of the best die cutting and I especially mean the centering, the registering, I think it's called. Sometimes they were not cut all the way through, but that's I guess if you're aware of that, that's not an issue. If you're not aware of it, I guess it can actually be a disaster when you try to separate the counters and it's not cut all the way through. But anyways, I never had that problem, or not to any significant degree. But now recently I've gotten a number of Victis games now, unfortunately, that quite surprised at the the registering not being what I think it used to be. But hey, that's that. Otherwise, the counter, the graphics are, just darn near perfect. All of the game counters are included in the system that I can think of, except maybe melee counters. Maybe it'd be nice to have little melee counters. And actually, now that I think about it, the Victis Days of Glory series has melee counters, so it'd be nice to add those here. The rules are good. It's the player aid sheet with the terrain numbers on it. Oh, here's another thing, by the way, not major, but also something to pay attention to. I discovered 2 things only as I was hunting down the evolution of the terrain modifiers. So I noticed that they did change the combat resolution table. This is significant. And they made it, I'm trying to think, they made it less bloody. They made it less bloody. I don't know that they made it less bloody overall, but in the old game, if you went into melee, you were automatically going to lose a step of morale. You were automatically going to lose a morale state. That's for the attacker, defender, doesn't matter. If you looked at the CRT, there were no dashes originally. Now they've evolved to the point where, actually, I think it's something like maybe it's 11 or more than 11. Oh wait, it's 11 or more, or it's less than 0, I think. you now have the corresponding no effect, right? So if the defender gets eliminated, the attacker has no effect, and vice versa. I have no way of knowing this. I'm going to go ahead and suggest that that change was made to satisfy gamers' desire for that. Okay, I got it, I understand, but I'll tell you right now, I as a gamer, I appreciated the earlier version where you're going into melee, you're not getting no effect. And thinking about that would drastically change, not drastic, could be drastic, but that's gonna change the flow of the battle, the dynamics of the battle. And that would change the scenarios. And so I mention that because when they talk about retroactively using the rules, of course I used to believe that. I used to think, oh, this is great, retroactively use the rules. Well, first of all, the rules have not been getting progressively better with respect to the player aid card. And then the combat system isn't the same. So I had to make the decision when I sat down and was thinking about playing Drew here. I was thinking, wait a minute, I want to play this game with the player aid card and specifically the combat resolution matrix, combat resolution table that came with this incarnation, because if I play with a newer one that has that different spread of outcomes, I mean it's not the same. So there's that, and then there's another one. So the CRT change. Oh yeah, and there is actually a change on the tables for. So you have these tables where you're trying to roll a number or less, and this is for preemption. This is for continuation. This is for interception. This is also for changing your orders from one kind of order to another kind of order. I remember they made. This is before I left, so I remember in studying the evolution of the player aid card, basically, they made it easier. I'm trying to remember. They made it easier to intercept. They made it easier to intercept when you have a charge order, I think. So to me, not a big deal, but it is something. It's another thing to note. So I know as a player, I falsely came into this thinking that every evolution of the rules was cleaning up and clarifying and fixing and improving. I don't believe that's the case. And I thought that the core mechanics were not changing. I falsely thought that the things like changing the orders or the melee table, I thought those core mechanics were not changing, but that's not true. They have changed. So, my take on it is there's still a rule set. There's a rule set. Then there's the player aid card with all the tables. Then there's there are the components. So the components have stayed the same as far as I know, which is good. I mean, your musketeer unit should be the same type of musketeer unit from beginning to end in the evolution here. The rules, I think, are the same. Yeah, I think the rules are essentially the same. I guess the most changes are in the actual player aid card, meaning the tables and the tables, charts and tables. So what do? I think in general I'll play with the newest version of the rules with the player aid card that goes with that game. And I've already actually, I recently did this. I put all of the game markers together. I've just put them all, which is great. I have a huge number of game markers. So those are order markers and bypassed markers and charge markers and out of command markers and no reactivation markers and lance markers, and it's not disordered, but it's the broken and what is it? Broken and whatever the other one is. So I put them all together, and it's great because there's no shortage. Yeah, so that's all good.